Welcome to the Rebirth podcast. My name is Caitlin Hill. I've been on a massive journey of self-discovery since becoming a mom. I'm curious to find out how we can be the best version of ourselves as women and mothers, and how that has a ripple effect on the rest of the world. I am so honored to have you listening here today. Please take a deep breath and welcome to the space. So, welcome.
Hi.
Welcome. Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good.
Good. Excellent. Happy spring.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is spring.
It is the first day of spring. It feels like the real new year. Doesn't it? It doesn't.
Is beautiful.
It just doesn't feel like the middle of the beginning of January doesn't feel like it's like the start of the new year. It feels like it's now, you know? It's like the rebirth of everything and the start of everything new. So it feels like a good time to be creating new projects and starting new things. And yeah, so happy to have you here.
Likewise.
So let's just go back to the very beginning. Like, how did you get into homeopathy? What's your background?
So I was born in England. My father was a homeopath. And in the 60s, he was very involved in the resurgence of homeopathy and taught homeopathy. I moved to Canada when I was 18. And in one of my careers, was selling homeopathic remedies. And I met a man who was opening a school. And he said to me, "Oh, is your name Damonte, as in John Damonte?" And yeah, that's my father.
Is that Italian, Damonte? Is that Italian?
It is Italian.
Oh,
yeah.
Amazing.
And his name was Raymond Edge, and he had trained with a man named Misha Norland, who was basically my father mentored him. I knew him as a child, and so I said, "Oh, can I join your school?" He said, "Sure." That was it. So I went to homeopathy school, and it was a really nice kind of circle. And then I began as a homeopath in 97, and my path has been at a time when homeopathy was booming.
Really?
It is booming, and a lot of new ideas, a lot of thoughts, and so on, new thinking. And my methodology has gone forward with all the modern ideas and then backwards to the founders of homeopathy. And I practice very similarly to the originators of homeopathy.
Wow.
And that's what I'm doing now. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So have you noticed a huge change in homeopathy since you first started? Like, you're saying that it was booming, and how does it feel now? Is it still booming, or is it kind of
I think there's
evolved?
Always a tremendous interest in homeopathy, because everyone who's ever used it has had either an amazing success or a horrible failure. And as homeopaths, we really try and find the way that makes our work more reliable. And for me, it was going back to more basic principles. And I feel that homeopathy can be simple and fast and easy. And our working together has been an example of that in many ways.
Definitely. It's, I think there's so much, a lot of misconceptions around homeopathy and how it works. And I think there's just like a lot of sort of, I want to say mysticism around it, in a sense, like people don't really understand it maybe as much anymore. And so what I really like about working together with you is that you've made it so simplified. Like, it's very straightforward. It's you know, trying one remedy at a time rather than having some kind of like schedule or set regime around it. Would you say that that's from the beginning of homeopathy? Is that more what it was like when it first originated, and how did it originate?
Homeopathy was discovered by a medical doctor, a physician named Samuel Hahnemann, and he was actually experimenting as to why certain medicines worked for certain conditions. And one of those was a product called cinchona, which is high in quinine, and it worked for malaria.
Oh, interesting.
And malaria was a very common illness from the tropics in the 1700s. And what he did was he took the medicine and discovered that by taking it, he developed symptoms of malaria. And so he understood from that experimentation that the drug that can produce the problem can also treat the problem.
Right.
So in homeopathy, another example is someone who's revved up, can't sleep days on end, like they've had 10 coffees.
Right.
We would actually use something like coffee, homeopathically, because
Interesting.
coffee can produce the similar problem.
See, this is where it's really fascinating because it's so different from anything that we're used to, like in an allopathic sense. It's not like, it's very different the way that you look at it. Like that, you wouldn't expect that. You would think, okay, you're going to give the opposite of something like that rather than the same.
Well, it's an inoculation.
Right.
It is an inoculation of the problem you have, not of a disease, like a virus or bacteria, but of the state. Like you take a lot of coffee, you're in a very obvious state.
Right.
And so, same thing, when your kids have been sick, they go through different stages. And depending when you give a certain remedy, it's the state you're treating, not just the illness.
Right.
So we don't know sometimes whether it's an earache or a fever or a tummy ache or an upset of emotion. But we measure the remedy to use by the way they're behaving, by the way they want you, by the way they don't want you, by the way they have appetite or don't have appetite, whether they're hot or cold. These are all the characteristics of the illness, not of the disease.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So I've noticed that since we started working together, I'm kind of always like, well, is it this? Is it that? Like, trying to figure out what the thing is. Even last night, for example, Rumi had what I thought was a ear infection, but I'm saying it's an ear infection because that's kind of the easiest way for me to sort of look at what's going on. But you're really looking at the symptoms. Like, what is she experiencing?
Which is also
right?
the ear. I mean,
Right.
I saw her,
Yeah.
and she was in an acute pain in her ear, and very upset, absolutely clingy to you.
Yeah.
She wasn't eating or drinking at that time, and she actually knew what she wanted.
Yeah.
Because you'd given it to her before, which
Right.
was the mullein oil, and that worked great. And then
she was asking for it, like demanding. Actually came upstairs with me and got it.
Yeah. And then I recommended you give a remedy if it got worse again, and I think you did.
Yeah.
So the question is whether that remedy helped her or not. And today she still seems a little off in my view. Yeah, still very clingy, not wanting to go to where the activity of the day and wanting to be with you, wanting to stay home. So there's probably another remedy to use there.
Right.
But it's always worth waiting until you get a full and clear picture. Because if I give a remedy for left ear pain, it could prolong the problem. It could make it worse. It could miss the mark, and then we've lost the opportunity to use a more accurate remedy.
Oh, interesting.
So
Okay.
it's always important to have symptoms, and there are only so many symptoms that are really useful and reliable that a homeopath can use. We don't have to complicate things. We can use those basic, true, reliable symptoms. And you know from my working with you that I ask very basic questions. And essentially I'm using a kind of checklist in my mind and even on the computer to make sure I've covered enough information that gives me a good enough image of what to choose.
Right.
And then you've learned as well from...
So much.
Yeah.
It's incredible how much I've learned just from working with you. Like it's really shifted the way I've looked at things, definitely. For sure. It's been very helpful.
But you've also learned to manage how they get better, because that's a natural process. And we as parents want to give the most and give the maximum amount of therapy and treatment and everything possible. And yet sometimes we just
take it away right away. Like we want it to stop. Right? I think that's like the biggest thing I've noticed is I want whatever that thing is that they're feeling to go away. And I've really had to trust the process of what they're going through, which is so hard.
Yeah.
Right? Like you were the one that like we were talking about fevers and you were like, well, it's good. That's a good thing. Yeah. Oh, great. She's got a fever. Perfect. Great. And even, we've been working together for about 2 years now. Rumi last night when she had the fever, I was like, oh, thank goodness. That means her body is fighting off what she's going through.
It was, but it was a long fever because you said she had the fever all night.
It was most of the night.
And then this morning she's not as bright as if she's gone through the illness.
Right.
So it's still there.
It is
And
still
in
there.
fact,
So does that just mean it's sort of another part of the illness? Like does that require another remedy at this point?
It probably does, but we don't know what. And we gave a kind of obvious choice remedy that may have helped, may have not, but it didn't complete.
So is it meant to complete? Is it when it's the right matched remedy? Should it be an instant thing, or is it like if it's something that's more, if it comes on fast, does it go away fast? Or is it if it's something that's more chronic that someone's been dealing with for a long time, does that take, does it take the same amount of time that they've had that for it to go away? Is that sort of...
You said it exactly.
Oh, really? Okay.
So basically the acute and intense onset illnesses can disappear the quickest.
Okay.
But remember that Rumi had a couple of weeks ago an ear infection.
Right.
And it's lingering. It's as if that congestive flu that was around this year is still kind of lingering. And it may be just the inflammation in her ears, or it could be still bacteria there. So her body is needing to fight that fully. And so because it's been chronic, it would take more time. However, in my opinion, last night, the acute pain that she had should have alleviated faster than it did. But we don't know. There's so many factors. There was the oil that may have actually relieved, but somehow kept the inflammation from fully resolving.
Right.
So we just go with the flow.
Right.
But generally speaking, acute illnesses, homeopathy should work very quickly.
Okay.
In fact, usually when I give a remedy, I say, let's give it once, maybe twice. And I often give you a backup choice in case the first choice doesn't work.
Right.
Because I do expect it to see some change. I expect to see change.
Yeah. So if there is, like, what kind of change are you looking for? Because sometimes I wonder if, because you'll see it almost gets worse. Is that a positive change, or are you wanting to see it better right away? Because I've experienced both with myself and with the girls, and I'm always like, it's getting worse. Maybe this is a good thing. I don't know. So is that...
It's nuanced, because sometimes getting worse is good.
Right.
But sometimes it's not.
Right.
So in my opinion, Rumi getting worse last night for a fever that long is not good, because it's such a long fever. She's exhausted from that. She hasn't broken the bug and gotten out of it and feeling better. Not fully, so it's not an ideal response. Whereas I think when I'm trying to think how you were with the recent cough, you got the remedy and you did get worse because the symptoms moved into your head, your sinus, from chest. I think that's how it went.
Yeah, it went from my chest, which was something that I had. It felt like it was getting worse for the first 3 weeks. Then I finally was like, okay, I just have to call Jonathan, even though it's so funny because with the girls, if they've got something wrong, like I call you right away. And with me, of course, I'm waiting until it's so bad. Which is kind of classic for mothers. But yeah, so yeah, and I found it really interesting because the remedy that you prescribed for me, I would have never picked myself. That's another thing that I wanted to talk about, was just like, because I've got the homeopathy book and I'm, going through it. I'm going through my symptoms of what I think it is. And of course I'm thinking, well, cough. So I'm going through all of the cough remedies and thinking, looking at those and focusing on those. But because it had initially started with a stomach bug weeks prior, you were like, well, that maybe was what initiated it. Therefore, you prescribed me something that's generally more for stomach bug.
In a
right?
sense, yeah.
In a sense. So that's why it's so complex, because I was like, what, this remedy? Okay, this would have been probably one of the last remedies I would have chosen. Yeah. And then that night after I took it, I had a coughing fit for like an hour. So yes, it did feel worse. Yeah. But then the next day there was just like a slight shift that felt slightly better. And then I just continued on with going with that. And yeah, it helped. It finally went away. So
yeah, and actually you took it again, the same remedy recently.
I repeated it again.
Yeah.
So because sometimes it kind of resurfaces and
in a different way.
right. Yeah.
So that's so interesting about the mention of cough. You know, you Google online homeopathy for cough, and you'll get remedies listed, but how do you choose between them? And homeopaths want a remedy for a cough. The disease is very important, but we want to find that character.
It's the character.
Yeah. The way your body is expressing itself while ill.
Right.
Not your character as you are now
Right.
when you're healthy, but what changes when you become sick. And so when we're treating kids, it's especially obvious. It's really obvious. You know, the kids become irritable, or they become sad, or they become clingy, or any number of different states. But they're very simple states. You know, I mean, often the question I ask you: do they want to be inside or outside? Are they thirsty? Are they not thirsty? Are they? Is their cough dry or is their cough wet? Those little questions. So rather than just cough. And what's really, I mean, you've really learned how to use homeopathy in the sense of when to repeat the remedy. Because I never tell you, oh, take 3 every hour.
No.
Or take it. We really want to see what is the effect of the remedy. It has to guide us. Because if it's not working, what's the point of repeating it?
Right.
So when you buy a remedy in the store and it says take 5 pellets 3 times a day, don't do that.
Isn't that, it's wild.
Well, you know, I think they have to give instructions by law,
right.
probably.
Okay.
And it could be at a time when you do that, but very, very rarely.
Right.
And it's like you wouldn't take, well, you do. Your doctor gives you a prescription and says, keep taking it till it's gone.
Right.
But we don't do that with homeopathy because it's not about the drug. It's about the response you have to it.
Right. It's more of like a simple nudge.
Yeah.
It feels more to, is it going in the right direction or is it staying the same or?
And what amazes people when they learn about homeopathy is that it's a medicine that is in a sugar bowl. And it was made by diluting a substance that would be the medicine. And we dilute it and dilute it and dilute it, and we put it in a drop, and we put a little drop on the sugar. And because it's a substance that we're sensitive to, it's so similar to the problem we already have.
Right.
That's why we respond to it. And it's like giving an artificial dose of the same disease. So you get this double impetus to react more strongly to the problem. So it's not the drug. That's why people say, oh, homeopathy is safe, because it's so diluted. But actually, it's not that safe. You have to be careful and watch what the response is. Don't just blindly give dose after dose after dose.
So can there be negative effects if you're over
Well, remember when you had that coughing fit at night and you were worse? That was just after 1 dose. Well, what if we said, oh, take it every 10 minutes? Imagine getting worse and worse and worse.
I see. Okay, so depending on the response. So if I had repeated it, then it might have...
It might have, yeah. It might have made you even worse.
Because it's your body's reaction to the homeopathy.
To the stimulus of the homeopathy.
To the stimulus of the homeopathy.
In a sense, the remedy said, I'm here. I'm your worst nightmare. More of the same problem.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. I didn't know that. That blows my mind. And
so a very good way to explain it is that when all the kids have chickenpox in the neighborhood, which doesn't really happen that often anymore,
right?
But then measles comes around, all those kids that have chickenpox, their chickenpox clears up and the measles becomes the dominant disease because measles is a stronger but similar disease to chickenpox.
Okay.
Yeah, measles is a much stronger virus, and we know that. That's why there's so much worry about its contagion, and they're hard to tell apart. Really hard to tell apart. And if you have chickenpox and you get exposed to measles, chickenpox gets better like that.
Interesting.
And then you have measles.
Oh, you got measles.
Yeah. So that's the same in homeopathy. That similar disease we give is a bit worse. Okay. So someone with insomnia, like they've flown to Kuala Lumpur. They've got jet lag and they can't sleep and they're revved and excited and nervous. Maybe coffee would be a good homeopathic because that's so similar to the way we are when we have coffee.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it's worse than what you're currently
really
feeling.
Or very close, but maybe a little worse. Or it could be worse if you had 10 coffees.
Right.
Yeah.
So is it kind of like pushing your body one step further?
Yes, yes.
Is that what it
okay. It's exactly like that.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So homeopathy is never about the medicine getting you better. It's always about pushing your own potential to get better.
Wow.
Like when we're sick with a chronic illness, like you've had maybe a bad injury, a shoulder problem, or a stomach upset, and it just doesn't get better. Well, why is it not getting better? What's in the way of us recovering? Usually ourselves. We're sort of stuck in a pattern.
Right.
And then we take a homeopathic remedy and it just pushes us a little bit more to say enough already. I can recover.
It kind of opens up the pathway within your body to be like, okay, I can heal now. Is that in that sense?
Yeah, because what is the energy of your healing? We're either protecting ourselves or healing ourselves. There's not really an in-between.
Wow.
In the body's mechanisms. And
that's mind-blowing. Like that's just, it's, yeah. And so can homeopathy technically heal any ailment? Like you're saying a shoulder, issue. I can't imagine.
Shoulder could be a tendon injury.
A tendon injury, okay.
A calcification, a nerve injury, a tear will try to heal by scarring and calcifying. It depends on the severity of the injury. One of the most common remedies for kids is called hypericum.
Okay, I haven't heard of that one.
Yeah, so in the old days, kids would get their fingers in the car door. And that pain,
right,
that screaming nerve pain, is taken away instantly by hypericum.
Really?
And you know what hypericum is? St. John's wort.
Is
and
it?
What do we use it for herbally? Is
Depression.
To calm and nerves.
Right.
Yeah, depression, of course, but the nerves. So homeopathically, we use it a little differently, even though it's the same medicine. And partly because it suppresses the nervous system in herbal form, it also can do that in certain dose of homeopathic form. So there's so many little correspondences, and many medicines in use today were actually originally developed by homeopaths. So
herbal medicines?
No, drug medicines.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Really? So it's rooted in that, in homeopathy?
So, for instance, nitroglycerin is used for angina, chest pain. It's a homeopathic remedy.
Really?
Yeah. Copper used to be in the IUDs.
Yep.
Not so much now, but they use...
Oh, they are.
They still use
they
copper
still do
as well.
copper IUDs.
And copper has always been used as a contraceptive for regulating a period, dysregulating it, so on. Yeah. For the cramps of a period. Yeah.
Interesting.
So there's many, many correspondences. And in fact, many people don't know that the influence of homeopathy in North America is enormous. There were dozens and dozens and dozens of homeopathic hospitals.
Homeopathic hospitals?
Yes. In fact, most medicine was homeopathy until the advent of analgesics, aspirin, around 1900. Okay. Surgery became more dominant. And, in fact, the American Medical Association was founded by homeopaths.
Really?
Yeah. So there's an amazing history about homeopathy.
It's fascinating. And why is it like we don't hear about it?
Well, I think the biggest issue is that it defies our sense of reality. How could a diluted medicine treat these difficult conditions?
That's so small.
Yeah. How does that work?
I think that's the biggest part that people don't understand. How could something so small actually help me?
And yet, for hundreds of years now, people keep using it. And they keep using it because it really helps them. So whether you're using it for family and friends and your kids, or you're using it for chronic illness, I can't imagine not going to a homeopath if I had a chronic disease. It's not that I'm saying I won't go to my oncologist.
Yeah,
Or get
there's a time and a place, right?
Immunotherapies or surgeries that are needed. Of course, you want to take advantage of every possible aid. But, for the average condition of depression or asthma or digestive problems or menstrual problems, I would definitely see a homeopath. Why not? And most people think that homeopathy is hard. They think also it takes a long time. They also think that it's a long time to see results. Well, none of that is true. Homeopathy can be very quick. In fact, I have a recent case of someone who's awaiting a lung transplant, and the remedy has completely helped her. Completely, in like days.
Really?
She can breathe so well in comparison. So it gives you pause for thought. Well, maybe actually that isn't the only option. Sorry, I'm losing my voice.
That's okay.
Yeah.
So we can take a moment.
Yeah, so it's really exciting when you see these really incredible changes. But then how to work with that? Should we throw away the option of the lung transplant? No, I want to know, really, truly, is this remedy a useful remedy over the long term? We don't know yet. So it's always, like for example, you would not take an aspirin for a headache if it didn't help the first time around. So you wouldn't do that with a homeopathic remedy either. So
the thing with taking an aspirin or taking any kind of painkillers is that it's sort of one size fits all. Like you have a pain and the painkiller will take away your pain. Whereas with homeopathy, you have to dig a little bit deeper.
True, but it's also because the symptom of pain is very similar for most people.
Okay.
And that's why a remedy like arnica is so popular, because
that's like the most well-known
because it treats
remedy.
pain. And most people have a pain. Like if you bruise your head or fall on the ground or have a shock after an accident, arnica will work 9 times out of 10.
Wow.
And that's why it's popular. But if you have pain from arthritis and you have it in your right knee and your left shoulder and you can't move without extreme pain, well, that's not arnica. That's a little different characteristic of disease, of illness. And so the homeopath would try and find a remedy that fit those characteristics. So we're not ignoring the disease, but we're integrating the actual symptoms. So a disease name is never useful in homeopathy.
I've learned that from you. I got the sense from you that, from working with you, that whenever I was trying to pinpoint what the issue was or put a name on it, that you were sort of like, well, I just want to know what the symptoms are, rather than it being this thing, which I found really interesting. A lot of unlearning for me, for sure. But it's really helped me tap in even deeper into what the girls are going through. Like there was questions that you would ask me that I wasn't paying close enough attention to. For example, what side are they sleeping on? Do they want to be hot or cold? Are they thirsty or hungry? And it's like, I don't know. Like sometimes these things when, I'm in the middle of just, mothering, I'm not fully tuned into that. And I've tuned into that so much more since using homeopathy, because it's like, well, what do they want to have the blanket on them while they're sleeping or not? That's a sign, right? And so it's really helped me really tune in, which
it's pretty amazing how you've, honestly, you could probably rely on yourself quite strongly just from your experience with using homeopathy thus far.
Right.
And you could easily learn simple language to follow, a simple method.
I would like that. I would like to.
Yeah,
very
really
much.
Could. And
I think it's important for all mothers to have that confidence in knowing that they can help their kids at home. With, maybe not with like, if they, broke their arm or something, you're not going to be like, okay, well, of course you could use something, but in those instances, then you do have to go to the hospital. But just simple things at home, like with having an ear infection, like for me, when actually, it's interesting how homeopathy has come back into my life again. Like, it's resurfaced. When I was a kid, I had chronic ear infections. Interesting. And my mom was giving me antibiotics because that was all that she knew. And she had a friend that said, why don't you try homeopathy? And she was kind of resistant at first, and then finally went to the doctor the last time, and they prescribed 6 months of antibiotics for me for an ear infection. And my mom was just like, no way, like, not happening. Walked right out of there. And she found a homeopath that she really loves. She talks about him all the time. And I don't think he's practicing anymore, but she really formed like a relationship with him where she learned about how to use it and how it worked. And the pulsatilla, like, for me, that was it. Like, she said it was like a miracle. I was actually talking to her on the phone about it this morning. She said that was when I was a believer. Like, it really was just that one time that the ear infections went away forever. And so, yeah, I think that it just is so incredible to be able to be like, wow, like I'm helping my child, through these remedies. And obviously working with someone, I think, is really key. In the beginning, like I was saying, okay, well, I have this book and I'm going through it and I'm trying to figure it out, and it's like, how do you find the right match? Like, I find working with you is like, yeah, like I said, you'll often give me a completely different remedy, but how do you find the right remedy? Like, for someone that just, I don't know, what, like, can a mother truly find the remedies herself? Or is it important to work with someone else? Can there be anything? Is there any negative effects to giving the wrong remedy? Is there, is it important to work with a homeopath or, take a course, or how do you recommend going about it?
Yeah, really good question. So all of the above. Really, if your child has an acute illness like an ear infection, a cough, there's no harm. They're already acute. They're already, in a sense, aggravated. You're not going to make it worse. Mm-hmm. So a remedy dose, if given carefully and with observation, you would see a change, positive or negative, and then you could try a different remedy if it really didn't work.
Right. And
that could be that list of your Google search.
Yeah.
Maybe one of them would help, but you don't have to take it repeatedly. Then, any illness should be, monitored, and you should have someone else's opinion, be it a nurse, a doctor, a homeopath, a naturopath. Someone should, if the child is not getting better, you can't take that on. But in the moments of an acute, where you might give children's Tylenol if you were going to the pharmacy for help, why not use homeopathy? You've got plenty of chances to get the right remedy. Mm-hmm. And one of the reasons that people use disease names or characteristics for remedies is to make it easier.
Yes.
So you could learn it that way and get pretty good results. Mm-hmm. For me as a professional homeopath, I need to get better than average results, or else I won't make money.
Right.
I won't survive.
Right.
I mean, I really rely on people calling me for referrals, from referrals. That's how my business sustains itself. Mm-hmm. So you have to have results. Mm-hmm. And so in learning a method that is reliable, I've actually discovered that there is a reliable method that is so simple and so fast that it's ridiculous that not everyone is using it. So that's my goal, is to spread the word about that and make it as easy as possible to learn. But, you're right. There is a need to understand the philosophy and the principles and how to manage situations, acute and chronic, and different types of illnesses. So there is learning involved, but it's doable. Yeah, it's doable. I mean, definitely. Learning online now is very, very easy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and this knowledge needs to be carried on. It needs to continue, because maybe because I don't know, I don't hear that much about like, I hear about it a little bit just because I follow certain accounts that are of homeopaths and stuff like that, but when I talk about it with people, it sounds, maybe to them it's sort of the woo woo kind of like weird alternative healing method. I don't think it is at all, but I'm just kind of speculating because whenever I talk about it, people really don't know unless they're, you know, they're currently working with a homeopath or they've, you know, grown up with it. But most of the time it's not something people are really aware of. So,
well, if you go to an allergist now,
right.
and they'll give you micro doses of allergens.
Really?
That's homeopathic.
Right.
They just don't call it homeopathy.
Right.
You know, and that's the thing. It's like, how can you make money on a homeopathic remedy?
So is that the real issue here?
It pretty much is.
Right.
There's no money
And if you're helping someone truly heal.
Well, I don't think that people don't want that.
Right.
And I think any doctor would want the best and most effective way. And unfortunately, we've become, you know, what medicine has become.
Right.
You know, it's computer medicine. It's drugs given according to your blood work, you know,
right.
or given as a way of testing what the condition is, you know.
Right, and you're not really looking at the whole body, the whole person, right? I think is the biggest thing.
Yeah.
I mean, just really simple things like in terms of personality, like that's a part of finding the right match of a remedy, right?
It is. Yeah, it is.
So, yeah. I mean, most of the time when I've gone to the doctor, they're not, you know, asking about personality. It's usually, but that's just simply because of the different, they only have those particular tools that they're.
So what is the main roadblock for you to choose a remedy and not have to call me?
I guess it's more about the timing. Like if it's something that I really want healed right away, then I'm like, I don't really want to waste my time trying things out. And then trusting in whether it was the right remedy, I guess. I think it really comes down to trusting myself and being like, is it right? Are they better? What are I have properly matched before, and it's the best feeling when I've done it. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I did it last week. I took the same remedy again that I'd been taking before, and whatever I had was gone by the next day. So it's a really empowering feeling to be like, whoa, I chose it. I did it myself. I guess for me, it's more, trusting that it's the right one and timing, wanting to not waste the time on something else, I guess, which is, I guess that's just with working with homeopathy in general, is you kind of have to try out and see if it's the right one anyways, right? So
you really do. And that's why you want to choose the most reliable possible.
Yeah.
And what does it mean, a reliable remedy? It means that it has a higher chance of helping than one that's not as reliable. So learning a few extra pieces about the medicines is good, but learning to do homeopathy by remembering or learning remedies is too difficult. There's too many remedies. So the best method is to find a way to sort out, like if you're making a jigsaw puzzle, you do all the straight edges first. That's what a homeopath who's working efficiently would do as well.
Right.
And you can learn to do that. So finding the remedies that are all thirsty is one way, that have a cough that's worse in the morning. That's a small group.
Really?
And then you can read those and then decide between them.
Right.
So you don't need so much information. You really don't. Any mom with a list of symptoms to look for could find the remedy if you had that checklist. And if you were learning to fly a plane, you would do a checklist before taking off.
Right.
And same thing with homeopathy.
Right. What's the difference between homeopathy and oops, sorry, that's just my battery. What's the difference between homeopathy and herbal medicine?
So there's so many similarities more than differences. The difference is that homeopathic remedies are diluted, and they're diluted and what is called succussed, where the molecules are smashed.
Right.
And they do that by simply smashing the liquid. And what happens then is it becomes nanomedicine. And so it affects a little differently than a herbal. Like if I take echinacea for my sore throat, or is different when we take echinacea homeopathically. It's a very strong fever remedy in homeopathy.
Really?
More than a sore throat remedy.
Interesting.
So there's a really different way of using them. And then also, when you take a herb, you're getting alkaloids and really strong medicinal substances. Whereas in the homeopathic form, you're not getting that. You're getting just the information. You're getting the message. If you know that you are sick, your body needs to wake up. It's like getting that dream message.
Yeah.
Where someone's telling you an important message. You know, you need to do this in your life. It's like that. Yeah.
Right, yeah.
And because we're already in it, we're very sensitive to it. Super sensitive. Yeah.
It feels like homeopathy kind of gets straight to the point, whereas with herbal medicine, sometimes I feel like it's sort of the similar thing, like, okay, take this 2 to 3 times a day for 10 days or whatever and kind of see where it goes. Where with homeopathy, I do expect immediate results in terms of feeling better.
As a homeopath, I use herbal medicines as a tonic.
Okay.
So if a person has weak kidneys or weak heart or weak, then we use the nutrients of the herbs. Or we might use a vitamin.
Right. And combining the two, like do you do that?
Definitely.
Yeah?
Yeah, definitely. Although I always like to do one thing at a time to learn what it does. And that's important. So when you're panicking for your child you're giving them a baby aspirin and you're giving them a colloidal silver and an ear oil and a couple of homeopathic remedies.
You don't know what's working.
Or if even they could be making it worse.
Right.
So it's very important, you know.
Interesting. Interesting. Yeah. And for people that haven't used homeopathy before, does it work for everybody? Like, can you start with a newborn? Can you start giving them homeopathy right away? Is it, can the elderly take it? Is it safe for everyone to take, or?
Pretty much it is safe for everyone to take.
Animals, cats, dogs.
In fact, there's a big movement now for working with gardens and farming.
I think you mentioned that, yeah.
So whether you have slugs or you have aphids or you
Come on, that is so cool.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
Why would it not? I've worked with some bioidentical farmers, or that's the wrong word, but organic farmers.
Biodynamic,
thank
yeah.
you. And amazing changes.
Wow, that's incredible. So it's within the soil that it's being.
So it's not you can affect the soil because that's a living culture.
What?
The mycelium will improve under certain remedies and pH mineral balances and so forth.
Oh my gosh, that is so cool. Wow.
Yeah, you could take apple tree that has mold on the leaf, and it can be in hours completely changed.
My mind is literally being blown right now. I never even thought about this. It always seems like homeopathy continues to surprise me. Like really, it's like, and wow, that's wild. That's really wild.
So it is fun. I know my daughter grows flowers, so we're going to be working on her rose garden
with homeopathy
to improve the soil. Yeah, we've done some apple trees and pear trees, and general, bugs and so forth. But now the rose garden is really a challenge.
Wow.
So it needs some support, and we'll see if we can improve things.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, that could be huge for moving forward in the future, because I hear a lot about, our soil is just not what it used to be, and that if it can be, brought back to life and regenerated, then that could be really huge moving forward for sure.
It's a big surprise. It's hard to believe these little sugar pills.
It's so hard to believe. I think that's the hardest part to believe about homeopathy is how powerful it is. I really think that that's it. And what's a piece of advice you could give to someone who's interested in homeopathy? They don't really know where to start. What's like the first thing that person
I think
should
the
start
first
doing?
thing is find a homeopath that is efficient, quick, and can explain things in simple manner, and gives you remedies that actually work. Then you can learn from that process like you did.
Yeah.
I mean, you have a whole, you would know where to look for more information.
Yeah.
And what would be useful for you in your life. Then there are online courses. I have one. But really, there's a really good book for family homeopathy by Miranda Castro.
Okay.
I forget the exact name of it, but Miranda Castro. Like Fidel Castro.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's a family homeopathy book. Everything, family guide to homeopathy, something like that. A very, very good book for a beginner. And I think it's...
Okay, great.
Start anywhere, but just don't go to the health food store and ask the vitamin person.
Right.
They won't know.
Okay.
You're much better researching on your own.
Dig a little deeper than that. Okay.
And most homeopaths like myself, they take a call right away if it's an acute. I mean, because really it's a 10-minute call.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
We work together like very fast, and it's really so. I think very important for mothers and families to have on hand. It's invaluable, really.
Yeah, I'm so happy that you're spreading that.
Yes, absolutely. I'm so.
Important.
I just think it is. I really do think it's very important. Before we finish up here, how can people get in contact with you, or how can they find you?
You can go to my website, bewellnow.com.
Okay, great. And you've got future projects and courses and things.
Homeopathysimplified.com is the course that will be launching actually quite soon. And that's exciting as well.
It's so exciting. I'm so excited for it. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and for doing this work. Really, it's really changed our lives and really empowered me as a mother. It's really helped me and my family a lot. So I'm really, really grateful for that. And just thank you for being here.
Likewise.
Okay. Thank you so much for pressing play today. Please leave a 5-star rating and share with someone it would inspire. Sending so much love to you on your journey. Ciao for now.